When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Allbirds or Skims, sure, they have a fantastic product, and yes, they have brilliant marketing as well, but an often overlooked secret to it all is the business behind the business, making selling simple, and for millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet, and the not-so-secret secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Allbirds and Mattel uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/theathletic, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/theathletic to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/theathletic. As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code THEATHLETIC, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code THEATHLETIC. Make your first deposit of at least $10, place your first bet on any game, and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code THEATHLETIC and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
The Athletic.
The Marquez family domination of the 2025 MotoGP season continues, but for quite a lot of the Argentine Grand Prix, it looked like the younger one would actually win it on merit. Alex Marquez, in the ride of his life in MotoGP so far, took the fight to Marc, led for a lot of distance at Termas de Rio Hondo, and this time it wasn't a gift, as far as we know anyway, unless Marc was really playing something quite impressive in how he talks about it afterwards. This is the Race MotoGP Podcast. I'm Matt Beer. With me in Argentina still are Simon Patterson, and in his house, Val Khorounzhiy. We're going to talk about the Marquez brothers a lot again in this episode. We'll also get onto the person we thought should be racing with them, who really isn't, Pecco Bagnaia. But first of all, let's give Alex Marquez his moment in the sun, because, Simon, would you agree this was a day when, until Marc actually put that final move on, I thought Alex was going to hold him off on merit. I thought there's not any favours being done here. Alex could actually beat Marc to this Grand Prix victory.
Yeah, I thought so too. Marc looked like he was under pressure, which he never looked like in Thailand. Like, we knew in Thailand, the minute that he dropped back, we knew what the game was. We knew that he was playing tire pressures. Didn't look that way here. That big moment at turn 11 with like 8 laps to go, where he was kind of feet off the pegs, out of the saddle, looked like someone that was pushing on pretty hard to try and keep up with Alex. And I think in reality what happened was that we got to the end of the race and Marc had a bit more tyre left and was able to kind of make it look fairly easy at the end. But I genuinely don't think that he was giving Alex a free ride at any point in the kind of the middle chunk, the middle half of that race. I mean, I don't think he was giving him a free ride at any point, but definitely he was trying to keep up, not letting him lead.
I think he regrets that he had to win. Genuinely, that's armchair psychology or whatever. But that's really what the post-race felt like, is because at some point it does sound like, Marc nearly had his multiple near crashes, which would have been unacceptable today to do that. But he nearly had his multiple moments, and there was a moment, he says, where he was like, all right, you know what? Alex has this one. it's okay. And then the tire dropped enough to where I think he realized, I can do it, so I have to. And I think genuinely, probably there's a part of him that would have been happier if he couldn't, if the pace wasn't there, if he just followed Alex home today and Alex got his first Grand Prix win. And that would have been the happiest outcome for the Marquez household. But the Marquez household seems plenty happy anyway. Seems very harmonious, and it was a good race. Unlike you guys, I didn't think Alex was likely to win that. I favored Marc through the distance just because of the usual race profiles. You know, Alex is a lot better at taking race pace further into races this season, but it's still, it's Marc. So you have to be not just better, you have to be like actively in a Bastianini level or there or thereabout to be comfortable in holding off Bastianini or Bagnaia level. And Alex Marquez, I just don't think is there yet. So for me, it was either Marc crashes or he gets it done in the final laps. And, well, I mean, easy for me to say because that's what happened. So, yeah, but I have witnesses to my observations who can deny it right now if they want to, but I hope they not.
I think Marc's caught in this weird place where he really wants Alex to win, but he also doesn't want anyone else to win a MotoGP race.
Yes.
He basically, and the last thing he wants to do, like the absolute worst case scenario for Marc, is for Alex to beat him in a way that people think that he gifted it to him.
Yes.
Because he does not want that. Alex doesn't want that. Marc doesn't want that. Marc wants to see Alex win a MotoGP race on his own merit, which he's capable of doing. He's proven before in sprint races that he's capable of doing it. But Marc doesn't want the world to think that he's gifting it to him, and he will never gift it to him for that reason. So all the people who think that he's going to gift him a race win, bullshit. No, he's not. Because he's, and I think Marc understands more than anyone else how hard it is to be Marc Marquez's brother. And Alex kind of showed that a little bit on Sunday afternoon in the press conference when he was asked a question by a local journalist, and kind of lost his temper a little bit, saying like, I am my own person. I'm not an extension of him. I don't do things when he tells me to do them, basically. And that's it. For that reason, Marc can never gift him a win. For that reason, Marc really wants him to win a race. But to do the second thing, he has to go through Marc. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing to do in the world of MotoGP at the minute.
To be fair, I think if it's like round 17 or 19 and there's a points buffer and you're actively points racing for a championship, then he might have settled for second.
We're talking about Alex Marquez in the context of potential Grand Prix wins, but after the race, Marc was talking about him in much bigger context, of course. Like Marc suggested that Alex Marquez right now is his main championship opponent. Alex AG in the Race Members Club asks, what is your take on Marc's comment that Alex is his main title rival? And we had loads of comments and questions along the lines of what is Alex Marquez now? Is he a legitimate championship contender? By the time this podcast comes out, you may have seen the latest video on our MotoGP YouTube channel in which, Simon, you give quite an emphatic no, he's not about Alex Marquez's title contender status. For the benefit of podcast listeners, do you want to do that in audio form now?
I mean, he's still Alex Marquez. He's still the guy that's super fast some of the time and then a bit leery and a bit crashy the rest of the time. He's never really been a consistent title contender despite having 2 world titles. When it takes you 5 seasons to win a Moto2 title, there's maybe something a little bit missing from your entire kind of armory of tools.
But I'm gonna take issue with that because you're talking about Alex Marquez of his whole career so far. Okay, that's a fairly realistic sample set normally, but look at the last month in which we've had tests. We've had 4 races now. He's up against his brother, a genuine contender for greatest of all time, and every test, every race is the same performance. That's consistency. But
Matt, you've just made the point. He's up against his brother, the greatest of all time. I don't think anyone's a title contender this year at this point, apart from Marc.
But is Alex more a title contender than other people?
No, not than Pecco. Not than Pecco. Alex will, I think, if he can maintain this level on a semi-regular basis, Alex can be part of a really, really good battle for third in the championship. Because Di Antonio is going to be stuck in there. Morbidelli is going to be stuck in there. Acosta might be if things improve. Do you know what? Zarco might not be too far away. There's loads of people that can kind of nip at third place in the championship, and that's going to be really close. I didn't even mention Bezzecchi and Martin, actually. I mean, well, Ogura might even. That battle, that group has the potential to be really, really close. Really, really entertaining. That's going to be good fun. That's going to be the saviour of this season from an entertainment point of view, because it's going to be about the fight behind the two red bikes. Once things settle into a bit of a more normal thing, we'll come to Pecco in a minute and where he's at right now. But I don't see Alex in any way, technically, in terms of his past form, in terms of what he's doing right now. None of it makes me think he's a huge step above the rest of that pack that I think are fighting for third. I mean, you know, Morbidelli was close to him today in third, on his first podium in like 1,600 days, because he's only finding how his knee works again for the first time in 4 years. And Di Gianantonio's still riding with one arm because of his shoulder injury. There's other people have things that will bring them further into form as the year progresses. And Alex is absolutely where he needs to be right now, on cloud nine, riding this wave as long as it can, but it won't last forever. He will not be second place to Marc all season.
There's quite a few questions about whether we've been viewing Alex in the right way. I mean, up to now. I mean, you've partly answered that with that kind of demolition of his career to date, Simon. But
didn't mean it that way.
Matthew Pope says 2 podiums on a Repsol Honda, sprint wins, pole positions on Ducati. When we start taking Alex seriously, do we just view him through a Marc lens? Val, what's your take on how we generally assess Alex Marquez? Which, I mean, I'm kind of hypocritical being like the Alex Marquez defender when up till the last fortnight I was first to kind of dismiss him as Captain Gravel. But historically, if he turned up with a different surname and not looking quite so much like Marc, would we be looking at him in a different way?
Yeah, we'd be looking at him as a rider who's gone from MotoGP potentially by now. Look, there were 2 Repsol Honda podiums. There was also a lot of really mediocre stuff around that, which is fine. Repsol Honda was a mediocre team at that point. It didn't warrant anything particularly much better. Ditto with LCR Honda. Well, not LCR specifically, but, you know, the Honda bike. This is like, I definitely do not want to be negative. And you know I've done a lot of stuff about Alex. I've written a lot about Alex. I've spoken to Alex about his sort of very particular position in MotoGP because of, you know, who Marc is and because of the career Alex has had. For me, this latest run of form is just evidence of the thing that I already believe about MotoGP, is that every single one of these guys in the right environment, on the right bike, can be like awesome, can be super, super good. But like, why should this surprise us in a series where Fabio Di Gianantonio went from unemployable to very, very good? Why should this surprise us in a paddock where Raul Fernandez went from the greatest Moto2 rookie season we've ever seen? Look at Moto2 rookies right now. They're all, like, all but one, they're all terrible. Nobody can do anything in that series in a rookie season. Now, then remember what Raul Fernandez did in his rookie season, and look at what he looks like now. There's a lot of performance range, and there's a very, like, if you hit a narrow point of that, you can be super, super good, especially if others are underperforming for some reason. Alex Marquez is super good. There's a lot of really cool qualities about him, and it feels like the GP24 is allowing him to iron out some major weaknesses. Again, the late race pace wasn't there last year at all, and right now it looks quite respectable. It's still, you know, not the strongest part, but it's good enough at this point. But now title tilt, and even seeing off Pecco Bagnaia over a full season, he does not have the Ducati factory team might behind him. That's also important. And Pecco Bagnaia has Gabarini.
Can I say it?
Yeah,
Can I say it? Can I say that satellite teams don't win championships?
Yeah, in this case you can, I think.
How can you grow your business from idea to industry leader? Bring your vision to life with smart business buying tools and technology from Amazon Business. From fast, free shipping to in-depth buying insights and automated purchase approvals, we deliver everything you need to achieve your goals. It's not easy to stand out from the crowd. Simplify how you stock up to get ahead. Go to amazonbusiness.com for support.
Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
Business taxes. We're stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live full service.
If you want to be part of the group that helps us shape this podcast by throwing in your questions every week, there's still a few days to claim 90% off your first month in the Race Members Club on Patreon. Just look for the Race on Patreon. Follow the links we're chucking all over the website at the moment. It's a really, really fun thing to be part of, as well as the question sharing opportunities. There's also a community in there where you can chat with other MotoGP fans and us. There's bonus podcasts. We'll go and talk about Moto2 and Moto3 again at some point, because I know lots of you are desperate for us to do that again. And also, best of all, we think there's 2015 Revisited, our Patreon exclusive retro series going back through the 2015 MotoGP season, which got quite eventful, race by race. We put an episode out on the Friday of every week when there isn't a 2025 MotoGP race, and we've just got up to the French Grand Prix at Le Mans. So it's fair to say that the questions around Pecco Bagnaia's performance from the Race Members Club are blunt, basically. On the gentler side is Ben saying, how badly is Pecco Bagnaia sleeping tonight? On the more blunt side is Northern Bastard, actually with a name I should have guessed, really, saying, now that the GP25 and 24 are close in terms of performance, are we finding out that Bagnaia is great but not special? Bagnaia wasn't even on the podium in the Grand Prix. He's already 31 points behind Marquez. He's not looked like beating either Marquez brother at any point since the actual competitive season started. Val, what is your take on what is going on with Bagnaia?
Yeah, it's just two things. For me, it's two things, and it's a combination of two things more than anything. And I think it's one thing more than the other. The first thing is the tracks have not been good. I mean, he's just like his record at Termas. I've not really considered it before this weekend, but just looking back at it, not there. It might be his worst MotoGP circuit. So to finish, third, fourth in a weekend, it's not good. But when you're not comfortable at all with the track, it's sort of okay. And I honestly, like, looking at the layout, considering it's all, high speed like Assen, basically the same average speed, I think you'd think he'd be better here, but the grip, I think, is just missing, lacking. He needs higher grip to be effective. So that's one thing. The other thing is, Marc's better? I don't know. Like, I don't know how to put this. Again, it's performance ranges. At his peak, Pecco Bagnaia is extremely effective. We're going to see some prime Pecco Bagnaia weekends where he just figures things out in weekend and goes faster than anybody else on Sunday, and he wins the race. That's definitely going to happen pretty soon this season, I imagine. But over a full 20-round season, it's always going to be complicated against a rider of Marc's level, as we've mentioned, a solid candidate for greatest of all time, a rider whose weaknesses aren't really weaknesses, whose only like real major tangible weakness is that he sometimes has crashes that I deem unacceptable for his level of performance, because I think that's the only weakness in his armor, because you can't think up of a set of conditions where Marc's going to be slow. I don't have it. I can't find it. All the right-handers, I guess. I don't know.
And even then, only relatively.
Yeah. So that's the problem. The problem is twofold. It's a bad track, and it's an opponent who's historically awesome. And we spoke about this preseason. Like, this isn't, nobody's sitting here super surprised about that the start of the season is looking this way, right? for once, we actually totally knew what we were signing up for going into 2025 so far.
Go on, Simon.
It's like, statistically speaking, the only way that anyone has ever been able to slow down Marc Marquez has been to literally take away one of his arms. Like, it has, like, he won championships on bad Hondas. He won championships against, as a rookie, etc., etc., etc. It literally took the injury to kind of stop his winning streak. And that is testament to how good he is. What's really funny is you said the question about, is Pecco, where is Pecco in the grand scheme of things? I remember sitting literally on the desk behind me in the media center right now in, it must have been March 2023. So shortly after he'd won his first championship, we did a one-on-one interview in this room. And he talked quite a bit at length to me about he didn't know where he stood in the grand scheme of things because he'd not won a championship. He'd not really fought against one of these next level, a Lorenzo, a Stoner, a Rossi, a Marquez. And I think there's always been a little bit of doubt in his mind about where he stands, not on a kind of a week-to-week basis. It's not something he goes into a race weekend thinking, well, Mark's better than me, so I'm not going to win this weekend. But in a kind of a grand scheme, bigger picture thing, he doesn't know if he's a MotoGP great because he's not fought against MotoGP greats. And it might just be that we're finding out that he's a very worthy champion, but he's not Marc Marquez. And that's like fundamentally not a terrible thing in the grand scheme of things because arguably no one is Marc Marquez because I think, if he wins this season after coming back from the injury, I think there's an almost unassailable case for him being the greatest of all time, at least in the modern era of the sport. So maybe Pecco just isn't good enough to beat Marc Marquez when he's being Marc Marquez, and we're only going to find out as the year goes on. But then to just kind of bring it back a bit more to this weekend and stop talking about the big picture, like Pecco's not, he's much, much more upset this weekend, this afternoon, about the fact that he doesn't know why he's lost his magic feeling with the bike than he is about the fact that Marc has a 31-point championship lead over him. He is very, very much not sweating about the championship right now. He's you can kind of visibly hear he's really not happy about the fact that things aren't working. But he also keeps bringing it back to the fact that, like, last year was worse at this point. It's just that he was racing against someone who was a bit closer to his level in the grand scheme of things, Jorge Martin, than against Marc Marquez. Maybe he can pull it back, and I do genuinely believe that there is more to come from him, but we're not going to see it. We weren't going to see it this weekend. We were never going to see it this weekend, and we knew that coming here. We are absolutely not going to see it next time out at COTA, because Marc, there is no worse bet in motorsport than what Marc's going to do there based on what we've seen this weekend, right? It's just going to be... It's going to be the sort of domination that you tell your kids about from a race weekend. It's going to be a whitewash. But then we go to Europe, and then I think Pecco is going to feel a bit more confident going into race weekends and have a bit more of a possibility to prove himself. But like fundamentally to prove himself to himself.
I expect a major bounce back from Pecco, even at COTA already. Just not relative to Marc necessarily, but relative to maybe the other Ducatis. And yeah. I mean, there were some technical details emerging this weekend from his debriefs. He mentioned, going back to that whole, he was on the Ducati GP 24-9 situation from the preseason. This weekend, I think he at one point said he's now at the GP 24-7. And I think for COTA, it'll be the GP 24, just the GP 24.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to basically, whatever's new on the bike, which we don't see what the internals are, but whatever they can remove, like the swing arm is the only thing I really can remember.
He's obviously listening to the podcast because he understands the GP version format that we decided upon a few weeks ago, right? So he's obviously listening to us.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't think that, I think he's going to be better at COTA, and I don't think that's going to be because of the bike spec. And I don't know. Motorcycle riders always like to find explanations that are in their control, right? It's always something we can fix. It's always like this one setup change. It's always this one like electronic settings. No, we just need another hour to work on it and it's going to be fine. And I'm going to win every race by 20 seconds. For me, sometimes the answer is just you cannot do that on this track. You're bad at this track. Next fortnight, decent track, you're going to be better. I think that's what that is.
There was 2 racers today who said in their debriefs, out of 22 of them or whatever, 20 of them, who said that they think that they can just wake up one day, make a big step with the bike and immediately win races. And I didn't tell either of them they were crazy because it was Pecco Bagnaia and Maverick Vinales. And it's entirely true. The difference is that I think with Pecco it'll probably happen at Jerez, and with Maverick it could happen at Coda, or it could happen in 2032.
Yeah, I don't think we'll visit Maverick Vinales land in this particular podcast, but you never know when it will crop back up. Back to the relative sanity of Bagnaia, though. Let's hear what he has to say about his performance at the moment. This is his chat with Simon and the rest of the media in Argentina on Sunday night.
Not really the day you expected, I guess.
Yeah, and I was expecting more from myself, but as soon as I started the race, I was struggling to find my pace, and it's true that I wasn't that far from the first 2 rider, because I was every lap just one tenth half slower in the first part of the race, but was enough to lose there. The fight with Johann and the fight with Frankie makes me lose a bit of time, but I think more than the 4th place was tough today. It was difficult today. I was trying everything to catch back Frankie, but with the soft he did just a better job than me, and nothing. The thing is to be back to my feeling, because my feeling is to make me fight for a win, not make me fight for the 4th place. 4th is not my place, even 3rd is not my place. So we have to be focused. We have to have the mindset that my speed is not that one, and working on it, because I know how fast we can be, and knowing that we have to work to solve our problems.
What's missing?
My feeling as I was last year. It's true that we did a step in front. We did a step in front during the weekend, but I was still missing something. The control of the rear tire, something that is strange that I'm not having, considering that the bike is similar to last year. So maybe for the next one I will be back to my completely bike from last year, because it's, at the moment it's a bit strange, my feeling. So we keep working, but we need to solve it.
Does this compare to times in the past? Because I think we've seen you with similar, where things just don't feel right, and then it clicks, and suddenly you have 3 or 4 wins.
It's true that this is not the worst situation I've been. Last year was worse, the first part.
Yeah.
But the difference is that this season I have a rival that is more constant, and the market will not make any mistake. So already recovering 31 points is a long journey, and we have to consider that the next one is Austin, where he's very strong. So we have to solve it as soon as possible, and then trying to catch back all the points.
It is interesting hearing Bagnaia talking about comfort with different bike specs and going back to older specifications. But the trouble is, like you guys have hinted, you feel like even if Bagnaia went back to his all-time favourite spec of Ducati, he's still going to be up against the reality that he's just not Marc Marquez. Maybe if Ducati introduces the GP25 properly at some point, that was the bike that Pecco seemed a bit happier with than Marc, wasn't it, when they were making that decision? So
yeah.
Well, they legally cannot.
Oh,
so.
Of course, yeah.
Well, they can the frame.
Yes.
They can the frame,
Yes,
which he wants to revisit in the post-race Jerez test.
Yes.
He's very keen that they revisit it there. So,
But by then he'll have raced at Qatar and he'll have raced at Jerez, and suddenly I bet the world looks entirely different after those two.
I keep forgetting Qatar's earlier in the year. Whenever I keep saying things like he's going to win at Jerez, he might well win at Qatar.
Also, Simon, about 10 minutes ago, you said when we get onto Europe after Kota, and I was going to say, I've seen your travel schedule. I'm expecting you will go to Qatar at that point. But if you end up in Belgium or something instead, then it's not that's Travel App's fault, not mine.
Do you know what? I've actually made a plan to go to Belgium. after Qatar, like literally the day after.
Obviously. A couple of people in the members club raised the prospect of where this all might lead if Bagnaia continues to struggle, if everyone else continues to be on the bikes they're on effectively. Both Matthew Carrier and Daniel floated the idea of Marquez going completely unbeaten in the 2025 MotoGP season. Do either of you think that is possible?
No. 100%.
Too many races.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, if we saw anything last year, every Ducati breaks down at least once in a season. Both Marc and Pecco broke down at some point last year.
But he was also beatable today.
True.
Yeah,
he won
was.
by 1.3 seconds and nearly crashed a couple of times.
Yeah. He won't finish every race. Even in his greatest season ever, he crashed.
Yeah.
He didn't finish every race, and he was beaten. You know, he had that 2019 season where we never finished worse than second, but he also didn't finish every race.
Yeah, true. And also 2014, which is this might be most comparable to, he did a fair bit of crashing out of just seemingly boredom in the final third of the season.
In the second half of the season, yeah.
Can't rule that out.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Fresh kicks, spring tops, new dresses. There's always a score.
I mean, the denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Head to your Nordstrom Rack store to find can't-miss deals on all the spring things. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Despite the big themes of Marquez brothers and Pecco, there is so much other business and stuff going on up and down the field from the Argentina race. Got loads of stuff that the members club ask questions about. My list of things that I want to get Simon and Val to write about in the next fortnight is quite ample as well. We're not going to cover every single one of those in this particular podcast. So if you're looking forward to hearing our views on what on earth is going on with KTM's pace, where Yamaha's gone after all that promise, and a bit of Aprilia chat as well, we'll look at the kind of who's in most trouble element of the field next week before Kota. But to rattle through a few of the things that cropped up this weekend that we do want to get on, go on, Simon.
Just to completely confuse things, my who's in trouble has like completely altered since preseason testing.
Yes.
Like it's completely flipped since we left Malaysia.
Yeah, we have been called up on one or two of our preseason predictions. It has to be said as the first
not my fault.
Seasons unfolded. But we'll start with some news that broke just before we were going to record this. Ai Ogura, who had a really strong Grand Prix coming through the field, has been disqualified for something really unusual. Simon, you went straight down to Aprilia and got the inside story on exactly what happened to cause this.
I did. So first of all, I went to Trackhouse, and I feel quite bad for poor Davide Brivio, who is at the time was on and is still, I'd imagine, as we speak right now, on a flight to Buenos Aires and doesn't know anything about this. So we're talking about his rider being disqualified, and he doesn't know yet, which is not very nice. But thankfully, the Aprilia guys were still there, and Fabiano Sterlicini, their technical director, was kind enough to actually speak to me, which he didn't have to do, so that's cool. So, with MotoGP's control ECUs, you get given the software, the hardware, no, not the software, the firmware that you have to run on them, which is basically the operating system that your laptop or your phone runs on. And then you load your package of maps for the race into the software, and that controls your engine braking and your launch control and all the other million of things that they can do electronically. The software is updated kind of incrementally through the season, and all the teams get the new upgrade at the same time once it's homologated by control electronic supplier Magneti. So they all get it at one chunk, but there's a new version of it coming, and they asked the teams to run it during preseason testing. So a couple of the teams stuck it into ECUs during preseason testing, which is basically sticking it onto a hard drive, letting it run. On Saturday morning, Ai Ogura had a massive crash qualifying and destroyed a Trackhouse RSGP. So they had to essentially build him a new bike. And one of the things that he broke was the ECU. So they went to the spare parts cupboard. There was no ECUs in the spare parts cupboard, but there was one on another bike that they'd used in testing, which I don't even know if it was one of his bikes or if it was a bike belonging to Lorenzo Savadori or whatever. But there was an ECU. All the 2025 Aprilias are the same, so they can take and choose whenever. So they went to get the ECU from that bike, and it had been used in testing with the new software. They put it into the bike, they loaded the map into it, and at this point, obviously, there's been some sort of a glitch where it should say, like your laptop does, basically, this version of the software is not compatible with this version of the operating system, and it didn't say it. So they presumed, which is where the human error comes into it, because you shouldn't have presumed, I guess, that everything was fine. He went out and raced, all was good. They came after the scrutineers came after the race, downloaded the technical data, and immediately flagged up, this is the new version of the software that isn't homologated yet and should only have been used for testing. And they disqualified him because the rules say you have to disqualify him, and it's harsh. But the rules say you have to disqualify him because if you let everyone away with it for 3 or 4 races, someone would try it not by accident to try and gain an advantage out of it. As it stands right now, like if anything, there is probably not, it's not even that there's no performance gain from this. It might even have actually hindered him because he was probably using a map designed, basically he was using a map designed for the wrong software. So it might even have been that it wasn't perfect. Never mind any sort of performance enhancement, because Sterlicini told me that, you know, you can see the extra values that the new software allows them to change were all set to 0 because they hadn't designed the map to work with it like they had the map that they'd used in testing with the new software. So no performance gain from it whatsoever. An easy human error to make. I mean, I kind of figured out what had happened even before I went and spoke to him, just from thinking out loud in my head, like, oh, I bet you they've used something that was on testing, blah, blah, blah. Because let's be honest, Yamaha did the exact same thing at the first round. Yeah. Similar thing at the first round, where they used an unhomologated transponder and cost Alex Rins all his laps in the first day. And it was literally because they'd used the transponder they used for testing and hadn't sent the serial number written on it to race control to say this is one of our transponders for the season. So, you know, things happen, things occasionally go wrong, mistakes do occur. It's maybe a little bit of an issue that it tends to be Trackhouse who has these things quite a few times. But by and large, I think it's not the end of the world. It takes absolutely nothing away from a phenomenal performance from him. You know, if this had happened to Aleix when we were here 2 years ago, and he eventually put together a kind of a title challenge, and he suddenly lost 25 points for winning the race, then it would have been bad. But for a rookie in his second race who is still learning the ropes and who did an absolutely phenomenal job in terms of pace and performance, no one cares. Yeah. No one's going to remember him being disqualified in 3 races' time if he does 3 more races like this. Yeah,
you said David Aprilia doesn't know about it on the plane, but I can't imagine he'll be too bothered because
no, exactly.
The news is good. The guy's great. Yeah. The guy you've chosen is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Job. The general consensus when I went down to the Aprilia office to see if I could find someone to speak to, and Fabiano was there, so was Massimo Rivola, so was Paolo Bonora, and they were just like, yeah, you know, kind of no one was upset. No one was shouting and throwing things around the room.
No, but more later in this podcast on Aprilia, things that make people do the face Simon just did, because Aprilia's year right now is, not great. Let's go on to Honda, because Johann Zarco was very, very positive after Friday practice, talking about being on the podium. He wasn't on the podium in the end, but he actually had the pace he could have been. If that Honda had some straight line speed, if it got off the line a bit better, which I think was connected to the straight line speed as well, this was a very impressive weekend from Zarco. And Honda overall, to a degree. Luca Marini and particularly Joan Mir were looking stronger than they often have of late. Michael Sandersoni in the Race Members Club says, how genuine is Honda's pace? Is it track condition specific? Have they really taken a step forward? Eric, much the same. Has Honda just jumped both KTM and Yamaha? Was it track specific? Did they actually do it? How real is this Honda step this weekend, Simon? Because this is the best that Honda has looked since ages. I can't remember another...
Luca Marini and I had this conversation in his debrief, and we think it's probably 2019, maybe even 2018.
Oh, it can't be that. Remember the weekend where they went 1-2 at Silverstone with Mark and Paul?
Oh, yeah, they did, didn't they?
Yeah, this isn't quite a 1-2. I mean, let's not get carried away.
Three bikes in the top 10, because remember with Ogura being disqualified, they now have 3 bikes in the top 10. Yeah. That's a pretty strong day.
Yes.
It's been Crutchlow era since there's been 3 Hondas at the sharp end, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, quite possibly.
So it's like pre-COVID. Like it's a while.
So where'd it come from?
I think it's Johann Zarco specific in part.
Big part, yeah.
Like this is his circuit, right? This is like, it's kind of, he's had loads of bad luck that hasn't really shown it in MotoGP. But whenever you look back to Moto2, this is his circuit. This is somewhere that he goes really well, and that's a big part of it. But another big part of it is that, like, the number one Honda problem is low grip, like bad rear grip. This weekend, no one had grip because the track's really slippery, and it kind of leveled the playing field. And suddenly, everyone was sliding the rear wheel around. And oh, look, the Hondas are just as competitive because they're not losing out where they normally are. And yeah, it was good. I mean, really, I think Zarco got unlucky because I think we spoke to 4 or 5 riders after the race who all said different variations of I missed my one perfect opportunity to make the overtake on the guy in front of me, and then the front tire overheated and I couldn't do anything because I had no feeling. Mir said it, Zarco said it, Bagnaia said it, Di Gianantonio said it, Acosta said it, kind of all went through variations of the same thing. But I think, I genuinely do believe if Zarco had been able to pounce early on and kind of block himself into P3, or if he hadn't been fighting against someone who's so damn good at defensive riding as Pecco Bagnaia, there was potentially a podium on offer today. And that's because he's really good here, and it's because the bike had no grip, but it doesn't explain all their performance. Like, the bike is just getting better. It's just improving, and that is absolutely zero surprise to anyone who has ever watched Honda in motorsport before, because they're just like pouring buckets of cash into making this project better, as they always do, because Honda don't lose very well. It's on the up. It's going to be on the up. It's going to be better, and we're I think this weekend made it look like it's further forward than it is, much like the Sepang test did the exact same thing for Yamaha. We left the Sepang test buzzing about how great the Yamaha was going to be this year, and they had a disaster this weekend, because it's going to be ups and downs. It's going to be doing better at tracks that are good for them. But like, remember the era of the rising Ducati, and it was exactly the same. There was, there was 4 or 5 tracks in the year where they'd surprise you a little bit. And then there was 4 or 5 tracks in the year where they could win races. And then the other circuits, they were in the podium. And then they won every race for the past 4 millennia or whatever it is right now. And then Aprilia kind of did the same thing. And that's the way you build back into being competitive. They're on the right path. Things are looking really good. Everyone in the Honda team is happy, which is a relatively unheard of phenomenon recently.
New occurrence.
And I think the best thing of the whole day for me was that Joan Mir and I had a conversation about how You know, his front tire pressure was cooked. He was trying to ride defensively to keep the guys behind him, and he didn't crash. Whereas last year, he would have absolutely thrown it into the gravel trap in those circumstances.
I'm still thinking of Luca Marini's comment. I think it was in Thailand, but he was talking about Termas, that he sort of foreshadowed briefly that Honda might go quite well by saying this is a track where teams really don't have a lot of great data recently, and Honda's very good at simulating around it when it doesn't have the actual like real data. He said Honda would have the electronic setup just perfect right away out of the box, and that would buy him a lot of pace for free in a way through the weekend. And I would not be surprised if that's exactly kind of how it went. But even with that, it's a better bike than last year. I mean, Marini's late race pace was
podium
convincing. Legit.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, that probably bodes well for the next two races as well, because Kota's another one of those circuits. And now that I've remembered that we go to Qatar before we go to Jerez, that's another one. I mean, that do you remember that amazing, glorious day where it looked like all of Paul's decisions to go to Repsol Honda were correct, and it didn't last much longer than a day, but there was a glorious day, you know?
Yeah, pictures of Paul Espargaro on the Repsol Honda in front of quite a few other bikes from Qatar exist.
Yeah.
That happened.
He led like double-digit laps that day.
So,
yeah, he did, didn't he?
So, okay, we're talking about Honda getting better and better. We're not going to talk about KTM much this week, but Simon, when this podcast ends, well, first of all, you're allowed to go and have some dinner and go to bed, but after that, your next task in the morning will be writing about the prospect of Pedro Acosta going to Honda in 2026. When I say prospect, I think it's more an idea that we've had, that several people in the members club, including Aaron, who says, where would you place the odds of HRC pulling a blinder and signing Acosta for 2026? HRC is the one with a rider who is out of contract at the end of this year. Sadly, it's Luca Marini.
Well, no, it's not sad. Because if you were KTM looking for a rider to try and make your bike better after seeing what Luca Marini just did to the Honda, you'd probably sign him.
Let's just make the important distinction that one rider who isn't out of contract is Pedro Acosta, and every conversation needs to revolve around that.
Yeah, but one rider who will have the leverage to be of enough interest to people if the KTM situation gets to a point for, through competitiveness rather than financial future right now. And like I say, we'll delve into KTM properly next week. But Simon, I think we all quite like the idea of Acosta being tempted by Honda. Like we've spoken before about the fact that Honda does not have a proper kind of marquee superstar rider. Val's shaking his head a lot.
I don't like that. Why should I? What is this charity strike program? Why should I like that? Do I like the idea of Fabio Quartararo having to put up with the Yamaha year after year? No, I don't. Honda's done all right this weekend, but let's not crown them kings of the world. Let's not give them the best young rider in MotoGP for nothing. Get him out of contract.
Tell you what will happen though is I'm going to write this story and we're going to get it online nice and early. And at 9:05 tomorrow morning, a marketing executive at Repsol headquarters is going to walk into his office, switch on his computer, see a story linking Pedro Acosta to the factory Honda team, and throw his phone on the ground in disgust.
Yeah, just to completely clarify, this is more an idea that would be fun. Well, or not, according to Val.
To be fair,
it's
it's an idea that has been largely started by Pedro Acosta's manager, stirring the pot and implying that there is some sort of performance clause that can get him out of his deal.
Yeah. So Val, you rightly say that Honda right now is not a great place to be, and charity of giving them the best young rider of his generation, and whatever, but the point Simon was making about how Honda gets there in the end, it's what it does. It's throwing money at this. If you were looking the obvious place to go for anybody right now is clearly Ducati. But if you're looking around the rest of the grid and what might happen into the new rules and that sort of thing, is Honda such a mad idea now that it's now that it's going to have embarrassing effects?
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. But don't look around at others. Look at Ducati. I mean, no, it's not. It's fine. Honda for 27, I think, would be a decent bet for anybody. But right now, the bike to have is a Ducati, so that should be the priority for anybody orchestrating any moves to go anywhere.
Is it weird that I'm more convinced than ever that the Ducati era is over?
Yes, that is.
They finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 today
Yeah,
again.
I know, but I see the others snapping at their heels closer than I have for a long time. Being an optimist.
Yeah, well, you're smiling on a late night podcast
based on the way that Val's looking at me.
Next month you're driving to Belgium when the Qatar Grand Prix is on. So I'm just.
No, there's so much more than Belgium. I'll explain it later.
Let's go on to another thing that I didn't think we'd be saying particularly soon. Franco Morbidelli on the podium. Ken Tor Talakstad in the Members Club said, how come Morbidelli is suddenly on the pace? He seemed to struggle so much last year on the same spec bike. Is it the track? Now, this was when Morbidelli looked quite good on the Yamaha in the era when he never looked good on the Yamaha anymore, wasn't it? So he is okay at Termas, but
yeah, it's one of his tracks.
Decent ride considering that though. Even at a specialist track, you wouldn't have seen Morbidelli on the podium over the last couple of years.
I don't even think it's one of his tracks. I think he just loves being in South America so much that he's just on cloud nine all weekend. I think that is genuinely part of it. This is almost like a home race for him, and he loves it. He struggled here last year.
Did he?
Well, we weren't here last year. No, he didn't struggle here last year.
What?
No, he didn't. He didn't struggle here last year. Where did I get that from? He struggled at the start of the season last year because he missed all of his testing due to a massive head injury.
Yeah.
And then he started building over the course of the year. And, by the end of the year, there were multiple occasions. By the middle of the year, there was multiple occasions where we were like, why has Franco not been on the podium yet? Like, he should have been on the podium at Sachsenring. So I don't. It's not a huge surprise to me. And you have to take into the fact that there's 2 Ducatis less.
Yes.
Mainly, why was he third today and not fourth like he would have been last year? Oh, because Jorge Martin wasn't there in a Pramac Ducati. That's pretty much it.
I mean, look, he's still a good, solid MotoGP level rider.
Mm-hmm.
He's, when you give a good, solid MotoGP level rider a Ducati GP24, yeah, they're going to put it on the podium sooner or later. Especially when they get a proper preseason, as Simon said.
And it's nice. I like it. I like seeing Frankie back at the sharp end a little bit. It was quite an emotional press conference as MotoGP press conferences go. He kind of admitted that he'd maybe had a little bit too much Prosecco and then got a little bit emotional about how things had been over the last few months and years. And it's good. I like stories like that. I think that was a nice way to potentially leave Termas as well, because we're leaving here tonight without a contract for the future and no one knows whether or not we're coming back. So I'm glad that the South American racer in the grid got to do that.
Yeah, the combo of 2 brothers having just a wonderful victory fight and a guy who's not been anywhere near this sort of pace for probably 4 years, finally getting back on the podium did make for a really kind of nice vibe, didn't it, tonight? However, a week or so ago, as recently as that, we predicted all this would be happening in the wake of Marco Bezzecchi on an Aprilia. TV Room Raccoon says, how is Simon feeling about his Marco Bezzecchi will win the Argentinian Grand Prix prediction? Simon, how are you feeling about that?
Marco Bezzecchi should have qualified better and then he wouldn't have had any of these problems. Because fundamentally, he didn't qualify well enough. And I maybe perhaps briefly forgot how absolutely phenomenally important 15 minutes on Saturday morning is for everything that happens after that in modern MotoGP, which I'm still not a fan of. But yeah, I thought he'd have a bit more in time attack mode than he did. He didn't. And then I think his races just turned into total disasters whenever they wouldn't have if he'd been 5 places further forward in the grid.
Yeah, a bit of a theme now. Two race weekends where we don't actually know how fast Bezzecchi is because we get hints that he is quite fast and then he just qualifies nowhere, can't make any progress from that.
With him having 2 disastrous weekends and with Jorge Martin not being here, I think we have no idea how fast the RSGP is. Because our reference right now is a guy whose head has fallen off and a rookie.
Yeah, quite some rookie though on these performances.
Yeah, we think he is. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's riding a bike that's better than the GP24 or GP25 Ducati right now.
He is.
We don't actually know.
He is.
No, he is. I know.
If he's not,
but you know what I mean.
Terrible right now.
Yes. No, I know. But we need to have a reference from one of the guys who we know to kind of understand where the bike fully is. Not taking anything away from Ogura, that was a joke. Yeah. But it'll be nice to see a fully fit Jorge Martin on it to get a bit of an understanding of everything.
as Matt said, if Ogura isn't good, then Bezzecchi is terrible, and Raul Fernandez unfortunately needs to be arrested for presumably gambling or something. So like cut that. Cut all that.
Yeah, that's true. No, I mean, I do feel like we need. And very briefly, one line on Raul Fernandez. I've gone from thinking that his head has fallen off to thinking that maybe the reality is that his team are kind of not really sure whether they're coming or going, because they're just making massive sweeping changes to the bike every single weekend, every single day at the minute. And he thinks they maybe found a bit of stability on Sunday's race, and hopefully that pans out.
Before we leave the Bezzecchi topic, though, as well as being slow and stuck in traffic, he also ploughed into Fabio Quartararo at the start of the Grand Prix and then went tumbling through the gravel. No penalty for that. I think we should have a bigger chat about stewarding next week as well, because there's so much to talk about from this change of era, and generally a very welcome one. But I think you two have got slightly different feelings about how the Bez thing was handled today.
I'll go first because I know Val's going to attack everything I say, and he likes to have the last word.
Wow.
I think the call was the correct one, not to penalise him. He got an official warning, which I think is fine, because it's we've always under whatever stewarding regime, we've always seen a bit of leeway for the mayhem of opening laps. And I know that Val will say that that's the most dangerous part of a race. It is, but it's also the part where it's hardest to kind of predict what is going to happen or what people are going to do or where you're going to go. And essentially, I don't think Bez necessarily braked too late and had to take avoiding action. I think he just didn't brake didn't brake as early as the people in front of him, and that's a hard thing to predict because of that complicated nature of what's going on. We didn't have any helicopter shots this weekend, so we kind of didn't see it from overhead, and that kind of means you don't know if the person in front of whichever one of the VR46 Ducatis he almost hit, I can't remember, both of them actually he almost hit, but if someone in front of them had braked a bit earlier and then there'd been a chain reaction, and suddenly it's hard to kind of get a gauge for exactly what happened in the incident. And I think for that reason, sending an official warning, which means translates into he's been to the steward's office, he's probably been told off for doing it, and he's not someone that you really think of as being a bit of a Larry rider. So I think that's a relatively appropriate way to deal with it for now.
I like how Simon has predicted all of my arguments as if he's one of the girls from Minority Report who predict crimes, or as if we've had a discussion about this going into...
I didn't need to have a discussion prior to know where you were going with this.
This, to be fair, good. I should say that I think, first of all, get your braking right in turn one, don't hit people. And if you hit people, you should be penalized and not warned for it. But the second one is, I have no doubt that if Fabio Quartararo goes down as a result of that quite significant collision, quite significant hit, that's a penalty. But because Quartararo had the whatever stupidity, I guess, to stay on, his race was ruined anyway, but he just had to ride the rest of it after being clattered into. Bezzecchi gets away scot-free. Don't particularly like that. And I don't know. I have a weird thing with penalties where, for me, it's not just... It's not about like deterring repeat offenders or whatever, etc. It's just about let's make sure that the guy who ruined somebody's race really feels it. And I think Bezzecchi deserved to feel it over multiple races for this.
One interesting thing that has come out of this weekend is that the wording has been changed a little bit of our sanction documents, and people are now no longer being penalised for irresponsible riding. They're being penalised for causing a crash. I suppose technically Bezzecchi caused a crash, but it was his own crash. So I think it's a bit more. I have a suspicion we're going to see stewarding a bit more. This season that's a bit more let racers be racers, and I kind of see this as an element of that, where there will always be an element of these sort of contacts in racing, especially in the first lap. And yeah.
Yeah, but you say that like that's a reason not to penalize them, right? Like, yeah, there will always be so penalize the people who made a mess. Like,
but I think everyone. Then suddenly you get into a situation where a lot of people are being penalized a lot of the time.
Good,
especially if you start. Val basically wants to see MotoGP bikes racked up in the long lap loop like a bus parking lid. I think, do you know what? It's one of those things where it also goes back to my other thing about penalising intent versus consequence. I think it's also, there would be multiple, if we were penalising intent in this sort of incident, which arguably this would have been, seeing as Morbidelli, or as Quartararo didn't go down, you'd see multiple people penalised every race start in every class, because there's always that sort of nudging and bumping, because you're trying to funnel 22 bikes into a very short space of time, or very short physical space. I think the only way you'd ever actually get rid of it is not by penalising everyone who does it. It would be doing something like going 2 bike star row in the grid.
Yeah, with that sort of first corner thing, I kind of get that it's more chaotic. Go on, Simon.
One thing that is going to make this better, and one thing that they could do right now on safety grounds to make it better, is get rid of the damn launch control devices, though. Because with them, everyone has a perfect start. So everyone's trying to get to the same point at the same place at the same time. So if you got rid of the launch control, the start devices, it would actually make starts safer. And they could do that right now without needing manufacturers' consent on safety grounds, but they won't, because they're boring.
I think the opposite. Well, I'm not a great fan of the start devices, but I think the possibility of first corner or run to the first corner crashes when you've got people setting off at kind of different speeds from different quality of starts. You've got more concertina possibility there. Also, like in terms of intent versus consequence on the first lap, it doesn't take a lot to change I had a bit of a wobble there into I've wiped out 6 riders, and there's often more luck and other kind of parts of the concertina jigsaw involved in that than what you've done.
The problem with the launch control devices, Matt, with what you said is that I don't, right now, without them, there would be people with varying levels of starts. Yes. With them, there's either people with perfect starts or people with terrible starts.
Yeah, true.
And there's a huge speed disparity between the two. That's I hate them.
For what it's worth, Fabio Quartararo wasn't exactly raging for Bez to get a big penalty. In his debrief, I think he mentioned the crash with Bez for about 0.3 of a second, then went on to kind of general misery about Yamaha's form this weekend.
I think if he'd been taken out of a race where he thought he would fight for the podium rather than 11th, he'd have been considerably more upset.
Yeah. For more on Yamaha's form at the moment, for more on KTM's form, for more on what Aprilia might do with some riders who were fit and not in the gravel, and on Ai Ogura, who we don't know is any good or not, it turns out. Join us next week when we're going to abandon the Marquez end of the grid for a while and look at everyone who is in more trouble than we expected at this point in the season. Thank you for your company. If you're in the Members Club already, join us for Le Mans 2015 on Friday as well. If you're not in Members Club just yet, that offer I mentioned earlier, you've still got a few days to take it up.
The Athletic.
What up, y'all? Zena Kata here with a huge announcement. We're dropping a new show. No off-season, The Athletic Women's Basketball Show. Same place, same time, but we're bringing the heat with some brand new energy. Join myself, Ben, Chantel, and Sabrina as we give you an inside look at the game with candid conversations, in-depth analysis, and taking on the hottest topics around women's basketball. Plus, we're bringing in the biggest names in the game to weigh in on all the action. So mark your calendars, because no off-season, The Athletic Women's Basketball Show is launching Monday, March 17th, with fresh episodes every Tuesday and Friday. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.